This week, we see the best new moon of 2024, and in this video, I want to make sure you guys use this new moon properly, or at least get the most out of it that you can. Welcome back to the Astrology Report. My name is Cam White, and this time we're talking about May 6th through May 12th of 2024. And while this isn't an action-packed week, we do get a very awesome new moon in Taurus that I'm very excited to talk about. We start Monday off with the moon hanging out in Aries, so we still feel a little bit more emotionally charged up, ready to do things, but as we go throughout the evening, the moon will ingress into Taurus. While the moon's in Taurus, this is a really good time to feel more grounded, to feel more connected. With this starting the new moon phase, this is kind of like cleaning up and clearing out some of the old gunk and kind of resetting ourselves. But as the moon ingresses into Taurus, it will make a square to Pluto. So there will be this kind of sense of anxiety or maybe some fear or some power struggles where you feel like you maybe can't relax or that you can't take some time to enjoy things because all of the other things that are going on in the world. But that moment passes as we get later into Monday evening. However, two of the highlights that we do have on Monday is going to be Mercury conjoining Chiron for the third and final time, as well as the Sun making a sextile to Saturn. This is Mercury's third time conjoining Chiron, and Mercury being about communication and ideas and our thoughts, it's been retrograde in this area, and a lot of Mercury retrograde in Aries has been like revisiting our plans of action. How are we going to go about the things that we want to go about? There's been some miscommunications and delays in the things that we want to start or that we want to initiate. But as Mercury conjoins Chiron, this is a healing moment. This is essentially saying, okay, you have reflected, you have reviewed this area. Chiron being the wounded healer, there's a lot to understand, or at least a lot of information to gain here. Like, hey, now that I've changed these plans, now that I've gone through this work, I now have a sense of healing. And again, it's a little bit painful. It comes with a little bit of a sting, but there is something here that is more empowering in terms of like where your ideas and where your thoughts are. And are you being courageous? Are you being brave? And were you courageous and brave throughout this time? And as Mercury conjoins Chiron, there's like that, feeling of saying, hey, I did the thing I said I was going to do. I feel good about it. And even though I had to learn some lessons, I feel much better and I feel much more capable of moving forward. And we also have the Sun making a sextile to Saturn. I think this is very constructive. I think as the Sun is in Taurus and we're more fixated on what we want to grow, what we want to enjoy, as that makes a sextile to Saturn in Pisces, there's this a little bit of like, hey, I can take time out to enjoy things. I could take time out to relax. I can have fun while still, achieving my goals. And then we get into Tuesday, and on Tuesday, the moon will then conjoin Venus in Taurus before we get the new moon in Taurus late Tuesday night. I love this moon-Venus conjunction because the moon is exalted in Taurus. Venus is in its home sign in Taurus. The moon is about being comfortable, being nourished, feeling safe. Venus is about pleasure, connection, fun, enjoyment. And as these two planets are together in their like favorite zodiac sign to be in, there's something really nice and fun and, sweet about Tuesday. And as we get into the new moon, a lot of this new moon is saying, hey, like, what are we resetting? What are we restarting? Where are we really planting our seeds? They have a saying here in Denver where you don't want to plant any seeds in your garden until after Mother's Day because there could be a snow sometime between April and May. And that's how I look at this is like, what seeds are we planting to really get the most out of? And why I think this is the best new moon of the year is because Venus is in Taurus, Jupiter is in Taurus. We have Uranus here too. So there's this combination of really getting the most bang out of our buck. There's this also Venus and Taurus thing where it's like, this is fun, this is pleasurable, but it's Uranus, this is innovative, this is new, this is exciting. So look at the part of your chart that Taurus rules over and get a good look at it and say like, what am I starting over here? Where am I getting really fixated? What am I feeling very grounded in doing here? And it should be related to fun. It should be related to excitement. It should be related to growth. And I think this new moon is just an excellent time to ground yourself in this area that Taurus rules and just like, kind of like, I think it's the 10 of Cups tarot card where the fat man's kind of sitting with all of his, cups and he's feeling very, proud that he's done everything. That's how I look at this new moon. And I want you to feel that way on Tuesday. Then we get to Wednesday and the moon will make a conjunction to Uranus and then it will conjoin Jupiter. Then later in the day, the moon will ingress into Gemini and it will make a trine to Pluto. As the moon conjoins Uranus and Jupiter, there's this, again, feeling something exciting or doing something a little bit different and getting a little bit out of your comfort zone and seeing the positive results of that. Yes, this might involve a shakeup. This might involve not being as stable or not feeling as grounded as maybe the Taurus zodiac sign wants you to feel, but it's okay to try new things or feel a little bit more adventurous in terms of what pleasure or comfort or security and feeling grounded looks like to you. And so that moon-Uranus conjunction is a little bit of like mad scientist, and the moon conjoining Jupiter is like, hey, you made a concoction that actually is the solution that you're looking for. And then as the moon ingresses into Gemini, this is where our emotions are more connected to our thoughts. We're kind of expressing ourselves a lot more. We're being a little bit of a chatty Cathy. And then the moon will make a trine to Pluto. Trines are harmonious aspects, and with Pluto being about power, and yes, it rules things like corruption and fear, and power can be a good thing or a bad thing. I look at the moon in Gemini trining Pluto as like having powerful conversations, and when you express your emotion, there is some power to be unlocked there. So I really also like Wednesday too for, again, trying something new, getting a positive result, and then sharing that with other people. Then as we get into Thursday, the moon, while it's in Gemini, will first make a sextile to Mars, and then it will square Saturn. So while the moon is making aspects to both of the malefic planets, this will feel like a more frustrating day. The moon is in Gemini, making a sextile to Mars, where this is a positive and a harmonious aspect. Mars is in Aries. We have all this energy, this drive, and this ambition. We're kind of go, go, go. And the moon in Gemini is feeling very stimulated, getting a lot of information to help with that process, to help with what we're doing. But the moon in Gemini then makes a square to Saturn in Pisces, where this feels really overwhelming. Like the moon in Gemini is all about gaining information, learning new things, whether that's through sharing it or through receiving it. And as the moon makes a square to Saturn, there's kind of this like overwhelming, like there's too much information. It's overwhelming. You don't really know which way to go. And so while the moon's in Gemini making a sextile to Mars, this is really positive in terms of like getting things going. But as the moon then squares Saturn, there's this kind of wall that you hit where it's like, all right, now I feel overwhelmed. I had too much caffeine and now I don't really know what to do. And I kind of feel a little spiral. It's not the worst thing ever, but that moon squaring Saturn is kind of like knowing like when to share things and when to not share things, or know, when to look up something versus when are you just looking up so much information that now you're overwhelmed with all of the possibilities. Kind of like when you have one symptom and you look it up on Google and it's like you're going to die in 5 minutes. That's kind of like the moon in Gemini squaring Saturn in Pisces. Like maybe it's just time to stop playing Google Doctor. Then as we get to Friday, we have the moon making a sextile to Mercury in Aries. Then it will make a square to Neptune. Then the moon ingresses into Cancer. Friday's a little weird because while the moon's in Gemini sextiling Mercury in Aries, it reminds me of when you're with a group of people and you guys kind of all like share the same opinions and you're like, yeah, rah, rah, rah. Like Mercury being in Aries, this is like our ideas, our thoughts, and the way that we communicate. When Mercury's in Aries, we're a lot more bold, we're a lot more harsh, we're a lot more direct. And the moon in Gemini sextiling that is like being with a group of people that you can be like mean to. Like if you've got a good group of friends, we all bully, like I have got a group of friends, or at least the friends that I have in my life, we bully each other, we kind of say mean things, but it's all out of love. That's what the moon in Gemini sextiling Mercury in Aries reminds me of. Just kind of like being able to be quick, being able to be swift, and just kind of say something that's funny, and it's a little bit raunchy, but it's all good times. And I think the moon in Gemini making a sextile to Mercury in Aries is, again, more of that stimulation, more of the information that you get is kind of helping you direct your plans, directing your ideas. Mercury is still in shadow at this moment, so we're still wrapping up things from last month. But then the moon squares Neptune, where there's this moment, because now Neptune is at 29 degrees Pisces and the moon's at 29 degrees Pisces. So this is right before the moon enters Cancer. There's this like, wait, hold up. What am I actually doing? Neptune is about illusion, confusion, mysticism. And when you get a square, this is a harsh aspect. So the moon in Gemini, with all the information that we're either sharing or that we're receiving, is like confusing us. We're not really seeing the picture clear anymore. And so the moon making that sextile to Mercury is like, cool, let's do this, this, and this, and that. And then again, it's almost like the same thing. You find some information that helps you move along, but then there's something that becomes confusing and maybe even overwhelming, or at least you just don't understand, or you don't have the clarity to move forward at that point. But that only lasts for a couple hours, because then by around, Friday evening, I believe, the moon ingresses into Cancer. And the moon is about our bodies and how we feel and emotions and safety and security, and it's moving into its home sign of Cancer. So there's this ability to feel a lot more safe, to feel a lot more protected, and take care of the things that we have to take care of. And I want you to enjoy that feeling of the moon going into Cancer on Friday evening. Because then as we get into Saturday, the only thing we've got going on Saturday is the moon making a square to Mars. And the moon squaring Mars is always like a lot of emotionally charged up like fights and conflicts. The moon is in Cancer, where we want to feel safe and protected, but Mars is in Aries, where there's this like feeling of like having to go faster, going harder. And it's kind of like that fine line when, like, let's say you're training for a sport and you're in Hell Week and you need to push yourself to the absolute max, but you're starting to get dehydrated. You're starting to get, heat exhaustion. That moon in Cancer squaring Mars in Aries is kind of like where you feel like you need to take care of yourself. There's this overwhelming feeling of having to keep going and having to fight harder. And so there's kind of this, tension on Saturday that has to deal with, wanting to feel safe and protected and nourished, but like also having to push yourself even harder. That's going to feel frustrating. That's going to feel overwhelming. You're going to feel cranky about it. And for some people, this might be better to push yourself. Like, hey, like you may not Like I think about it in something like, boot camp, or, if you've ever heard any of the stories about the SEAL teams, Navy SEALs training, it's like they push themselves to the absolute limit and they get out of that comfort zone. And I think that might be what might be best for quite a few people here. But for a lot of other people that are going really, really, really hard, like sleep and hydration is really important for the body in order for you to keep going. So it's going to be up to you to figure out what's going to be best for you. Is that going to be to push yourself a little bit harder, a little bit out of your comfort zone? Or is that going to like actually take a moment and pause and say, you know what, I do need to chill for just a moment. This, whatever it is I'm doing, can wait. And then we get to Sunday and the moon is making all types of aspects on Sunday. The moon, while it's in Cancer, will first make a sextile to Venus, then it will trine Saturn, then it will sextile Uranus, sextile Jupiter, and then square Mercury. So there's a lot going on here on Sunday, and you're going to feel a little bit all over the place, but I think that's exciting. Because as the moon's in Cancer, sextiling Venus and Taurus, it's like, hey, you had your little snack, you had your nap, you had your water. Now it's time, again, to go hard like you were. But the moon in Cancer then trines Saturn. The moon shining Saturn, like the moon is again like our emotions and how we feel on the inside. And Saturn is about maturity and discipline. And there's this kind of like, if they're making a trine to one another, this is harmonious where it's like, hey, maybe again, taking a break, having a little snack, having a little nap, whatever that looks like for you is actually kind of helping you be a little bit more mature, being a little bit more disciplined. Like, for example, if you're someone that's like chronically depressed, like take a fucking shower. It's been 4 days. Like that, taking care of yourself is good for the emotional discipline and the emotional maturity, which is what Saturn and Pisces is about. And then as the moon's in Cancer, it will then make a sextile to Uranus and then Jupiter. So again, trying new things, not being afraid to experiment. I've been really enjoying the moon in Cancer making a sextile to Uranus and Taurus because it reminds me of like, if you've never made sourdough bread, like making sourdough bread or something like that. Like, what can I do to nourish me or to feel protected and safe, and maybe do something a little bit different. Maybe try something that's a little bit out of my comfort zone. Maybe be a little bit inventive of how I go about this. And as the moon makes a sextile to Uranus, there's this kind of innovative feeling about things, feeling very liberated. And then the moon makes a sextile to Jupiter where there's this, again, this feeling comfortable, feeling good with the decisions that we made or what we tried to do. But then as we get to the evening on Sunday, the moon makes a square to Mercury in Aries. And this reminds me of like not being sensitive. Like the moon's in Cancer where, again, like let's say you're around a bunch of sensitive people, and Mercury is in Aries where you got someone like me who I just kind of say it as it is. And sometimes that rubs people the wrong way and I'm not as sensitive as maybe I should be. But that's kind of the vibe here where Mercury in Aries is just kind of saying things maybe a little bit more mean, maybe a little bit more intense, maybe a little bit more, harsher than it needs to be. And that kind of not jiving with people's sensitivity or how their emotions are. So I'd really pay attention on Sunday evening of just kind of being too amped up. It reminds me of like an excited puppy. Like the excited puppy is just like, I'm excited to see you. I'm going to jump all over you and be all over the place. But this might be like an old grandma where it's like that dog could just jump up on the grandma and shove her down, where it's like, that's not good. We need to calm down a little bit and understand people's, spaces and their energy. So Sunday has a lot of great lunar transits, but at the end of the day, there's this kind of rough spot where it's like just having to read the room a little bit. But as we get into next week, though, we're going to have Mercury leave shadow and then enter Taurus. I think this is exciting because Mercury's been in Aries since like March. Then we'll have Mercury square Pluto. We'll have Venus conjoin Uranus. I think this is a super exciting transit. We have Jupiter Cazimi. We have the restart and the refresh of Jupiter, as well as Mars conjoining the North Node. So I really want you to get the most out of this week. It's a lot of chill energy. It's a lot of getting grounded and feeling stable and planting those seeds for a beautiful harvest by the fall. And that builds us up to next week where we have a lot of intense changes. We have a lot of exciting things even next week. And like I've been saying, this month between really April 25th and May 25th is the most exciting month of the year. Keep remembering that. Even if you're going through a difficult time, even if you have something challenging coming up, face those challenges. Get the most out of this month because this year does have a lot more challenges. And if this is bad for you right now, just know that this is really good as far as the astrology goes. And so get the most out of it. Do the work. Enjoy things while you can enjoy things. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all of the transits that are going on throughout the year. Make sure you like this video and comment what you're going to be doing for this new moon in Taurus, what you're excited for, and what has happened for you since the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, and how you plan on utilizing it with this new moon now. And with that being said, I love and appreciate you guys. I'll be seeing you next week.